Hello, my name is Aaron Hathaway. I'm a Tech Services Manager with New Farm. We're here talking about Anew EZ, and in particular, we're talking about seedhead suppression. Most of the time, we're talking about seedhead suppression of annual bluegrass. And so right off the bat, we're going to start off kind of with New Farm's recommendation for annual bluegrass seedhead suppression. And again, we've had a lot of time, many years to research this from a university standpoint. And of course, we kind of find out little pieces along the way, along the years, to help us get better and better seedhead suppression, which isn't always easy. And so we do recommend a fall application of Proxy. Proxy or Ethafon is still the main driver of seedhead suppression, especially in annual bluegrass. And so that fall timing can get you a little bit better seedhead suppression, and then coming back in the spring with another application of Proxy. And it's at this time that we recommend tank mixing with Anew EZ. Anew EZ does a couple things. It helps to safeten the Proxy, which can kind of lighten up that annual bluegrass. It kind of gives you this this bright green color, and so it can darken the color of the annual bluegrass and help to reduce the mottling that you might see early in the spring. So Anew EZ is a good addition to Proxy starting in the spring. Don't think it's necessary to add it to the tank mix in the fall, but starting in the spring, the key here is starting with a very low rate. So 2.2 fluid ounces per acre of Anew with 5 fluid ounces per 1,000 of Proxy for that first application in the spring. And if you need help timing that first application in the spring, you can use a website like www.gddtracker.msu.edu. This will help you track growing degree days in your region. And then there is a threshold at which we recommend making that application. The threshold that this website gives you is about 200 to 500 growing degree days. That's with a base 32 Fahrenheit. My recommendation is to apply earlier in that range than later. I make that recommendation just because one of the reasons we make the fall application of Proxy is because we know that there are tons of biotypes of annual bluegrass. So theoretically, we think that some biotypes of annual bluegrass begin the production of seed heads even way back in the fall. That the very beginning of that production can start way back in the fall. So you time a Proxy application then to work on those biotypes, and then you come back in the spring. And I think the earlier that you can make that application, the better, because some of those annual bluegrass biotypes are beginning that production again pretty early in the spring. So earlier in that range of growing degree days, I think it's better. Anecdotally, in my research, I've seen that those earlier timings seem to work better. However, you don't want to go too early. If you apply too early when temps are really low, you just regulate the turf too much, and the chance of delaying that green up is certainly there. So that's why we recommend a very low rate of Anew EZ that early. Anew not only helps to safeten Proxy, but it helps with the seed head suppression as well. It gives you a little bit better seed head suppression. And because we don't have embark anymore, we only have Proxy, and we know that Proxy is not the end-all be-all for seed head suppression. It does need a little bit of help. And so Anew EZ provides that help. It adds a little bit of safety, but Proxy on its own is a plant growth regulator. You just don't need much more regulation. So that's why we start with 2.2 fluid ounces per acre, come back 21 days later in the spring with a second app of 5 fluid ounces per 1,000 of Proxy, and then double that rate of Anew EZ to 4.5 fluid ounces per acre. And then thereafter, you're done with your Proxy applications, and you can kind of resume your Anew applications as a regular plant growth regulator after that point. Okay, so for a long time, Primo's been the tank mix partner of Proxy. A lot of people think that they have to go together. Just kind of showing here that whether it's Proxy plus Primo, that does a good job. It's a good combination for seed head suppression. Proxy plus Anew is a great combination for seed head suppression. And so when we compare those treatments, they're very similar in the seed head suppression they're going to provide. So when it comes to seed head suppression, I don't think there's a huge difference between Proxy Primo or Proxy Anew. But I'm going to show you the advantage in the next couple slides of adding Anew versus Primo. So one of the advantages of mixing Proxy with Anew in the spring instead of Primo is the increased quality. And I see this pretty consistently on putting greens in particular for seed head suppression. And the reason for that, I believe, is that Anew is a much stronger regulator of annual bluegrass. In the spring, you tend to get this mottling, especially if you have bent grass as a part of that stand. You can really pick out those two species and they tend to segregate, so you can pick them out visually. And you'll also see mottling from the different biotypes of annual bluegrass that are present. In the spring, again, you can really pick out different biotypes. They tend to pop out. Some will produce more seeds. Some will just be yellower in color, so you can sometimes pick them out really easily. Anew tends to just more evenly regulate, and so this is the quality of Anew, this orange line. As you make applications with proxy, especially into June here in Michigan, we saw that the quality of this putting green started to really pick up. Especially versus the untreated down here, the gray bar. This is probably a lot of this decrease in quality in the gray bar and the untreated is the increase in seed heads. So there was no proxy applied here, no Anew plus proxy, and therefore the seed heads really picked up, and in the quality went down, the visual quality. As you're applying Anew, quality just went up. This was mixed with proxy, so we saw a good decrease in seed heads, which increased the quality, but we also saw a decrease in mottling and just an increase in dark green color, which really makes the quality of a putting green increase. These pictures kind of encapsulate what I was just talking about on the previous slide. I like to start here with the untreated. Look at all this mottling. So no proxy applied, no seed head suppression treatments at all in the untreated area, and you can see the annual bluegrass really sticking out. With seed heads especially, it's really sticking out from the bent grass around it. And like I said, there's probably even different biotypes of annual bluegrass within there. Here's Primo plus proxy giving you good seed head suppression, but you still see some of those different species and even biotypes sticking out from each other. And Anew plus proxy just really tightens up that turf, tightens up the color, and decreases that mottling. You see it on the left-hand side here, 2 versus the untreated plot above it. I like to show this slide simply because it shows what applying seed head suppression treatments versus not applying seed head suppression treatments really looks like. And I think superintendents, I hear complaints from superintendents often about their seed head suppression. They just don't think it's enough. And often it's because we're simply not comparing it to an untreated plot. We've sprayed an entire fairway or an entire 18 greens, and we have no comparison to compare it to. And so you can do this on your nursery, you can do it in your fairways, where you simply put a board down so that you have an understanding of just how successful your seed head suppression program really was. If you have no untreated to compare it to, then you don't really have a great idea of if it was successful or if it was not a success. And so all of this just to encourage you, if you're doing something that's not always 100% and you're wavering on whether it's worth it or not, this is a simple way just to put a board down. And this is a trial area in Michigan, but you can see here's treated plot here, here's another treated plot, and then untreated, untreated. You can really pick out the untreated plots very easily because they have tons of seed heads in them. This is also, this is a trial I've been doing in Michigan. It's on a fairway, and I've been applying different PGRs every 2 weeks on the fairway during the growing season. And they're fairly high rates. Really the goal of this trial was to suppress POA, but I also got to see some really cool results on seed heads. And this is after a really late fall timed PGR application. So this is a snow mold timed application. So in November, just before snowfall, just before temperatures really dropped, I went in and made applications of the same PGR treatments that I was applying every 2 weeks. And I actually did this trial for 4 straight years. And this will make the 5th straight year of applying these PGRs and these different treatments. And so you can see some of these treatments, Anew EZ applied at 18 fluid ounces per acre plus trim it at 5 ounces per acre. Applied bi-weekly for 4 years, and then this last year I also applied at that snow mold timing, and I came back in the spring. This is May of 2022 is the photo, and you can see how clean these plots look. Now there's still certainly still some Anew bluegrass in there, but everything's so dark green. And then here's Anew Easy at 18 fluid ounces per acre on its own. Again, applied bi-weekly for 4 years. And then the snow mold timing. So it was applied in November of 2021. This photo is early spring of 2022. And then I took a seed head suppression. You saw in that previous picture that there were lots of seed heads in the Anew bluegrass, especially the plots that had lots of Anew bluegrass. So I took a seed head suppression evaluation, and you can see Anew. This is Anew at 8 ounces or Anew EZ at 18 fluid ounces. Again, applied every 2 weeks for 4 years straight, and then that snow mold timing. Actually, this first treatment didn't include that snow mold timing. So whether I applied it at that late snow mold timing or not, we see really, really good seed head suppression from regular use of Anew. The one thing that I'll point out is this is a fairly high rate. Maybe typically I'll see people go maybe between 4 and 6 ounces, or 9 and 13 fluid ounces of Anew EZ per acre. But this is higher rate, again, 18 fluid ounces of Anew EZ, but really giving good seed head suppression versus the untreated. This is a scale from 1 to 9, so 9 would just represent the most seed heads. Here's Primo. It's providing a little bit of suppression, but not a ton. And this isn't simply showing that there's less Anew bluegrass in these plots, because Trimit at 12 ounces per acre was a really good treatment for POA suppression, but it's still producing plenty of seed heads versus Anew down here. And then when we look at Anew on its own with the snow mold, so SM represents that snow mold treatment also, even better seed head suppression. Anew at 18 fluid ounces per acre, that's the Anew EZ rate, plus Trimit at 5 ounces per acre, plus that snow mold timing, really good as well. So in review, seed head suppression, it is one of those things that, again, I just hear a lot of complaints about because people want better results. And I think people remember kind of the days of Embark or mefluidide when seed head suppression could be really, really clean. With Proxy, it's rare that you really just get 100% suppression of seed heads. It's more like 85% suppression at the most. And so doing some of these extra things can be helpful to give you a little bit of a boost in seed head suppression. So adding Anew EZ in the spring, starting low at 2.2 fluid ounces per acre, and then ratcheting up that rate as you make your second application. And then as you move in just to regular PGR applications, then you can move it up to your regular rate, whether it's a fairway or a green. Adding that fall timed Proxy, it helps. It doesn't make all the difference in the world, but it can add maybe 10 to 30% seed head suppression in greens and fairways. So adding that fall Proxy app, I don't think it's necessary to include Anew EZ at that timing. And then, as I mentioned, apply your first spring Proxy Anew EZ app early in this window. So you can definitely use that GDD tracker website that I mentioned. But here's the window, 200 to 500 growing degree days. I like that first app earlier in this window. You'll see some suggest that you need to mow before that app occurs. I don't think that's absolutely necessary. I've made plenty of applications early in this window when it didn't make sense to mow before that application occurred, and it was fine. The whole idea is to make sure that at least there's some growth. If you're at least following these growing degree days and you're within that window, I'm confident that there's at least enough growth. Now, here's a caveat. If you make your first spring application and you get a really, really strong cool down thereafter, which happens fairly often. I'm in Michigan, you'll see some warm weather, those growing degree days will really start to accumulate, and then you'll make your first application, and then all of a sudden the temps plummet. In that case, I might widen my window of 21 days after that first app for the second app to maybe 30 days. Or I'll just kind of watch the weather and make sure that those temps at least start to warm up before I make a second app. Remember, adding Anew EZ at that spring timing helps to delay seed head production. So in the end, it helps to get a little bit better seed head suppression, But another huge thing it does is increase the turf quality, especially during the spring when some of that mottling really sticks out. Thanks again for listening. Again, if you have any questions, shoot me an email at aaron.hathaway@newfarm.com.